Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. I'm a doula in Washoe County, Nevada, a Medicaid provider, a lactation educator, childbirth educator, and mom of 18. You can find me and connect on doulainreno.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive in. Welcome to Becoming Parents. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell, and today I'm with Anne Pageau. How are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I was so excited when I saw that you were going to be on because this is the local episode, like in Nevada. You have to live in the area to be on these episodes. And I know you, I hug you, we see each other. But I also love what you do, and I'm really excited about your story. Can you jump in and share about what your parenting journey was?
My parenting journey is definitely a lot of twists and turns. I started out, I've had children pretty much in every decade that I can have children until I turned 40. I haven't had a kid in 40. But my journey started out when I was 15 when I got pregnant and 16 when I had my first child. And I was one of those girls that thought, oh, I'm going to go ahead and experiment and, oh, it's not going to happen to me. And lo and behold, I ended up pregnant. And yeah, I had my first child when I was 16. I was a sophomore in high school, and I ended up giving him up for adoption. And we can talk about that a little later. And then I ended up marrying another man at the end of my high school time, and we had a child together when I was 20. So that's the second decade. And then we had a very traumatic experience and got divorced because of domestic violence. And so I was a single parent for a long time, and then got married again in my 30s. And I now have an 11-year-old. So, and then I also have stepchildren and all of that. So yeah, my 11-year-old was born when my older son was 18. So have a lot of
Oh yeah,
time.
20 and 38. Holy cow, that's a big gap, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm tracking now. So holy cow. Let's go back to high school,
Yeah.
deciding to experiment. So I was born in 1970 and I graduated in 88. So I don't know how close in age we are.
I was born in 74. And I
Okay.
graduated in 93. So
Okay, great. So in 1986, 87, when I was a junior, my friend Rose got pregnant. And I remember her showing up to school all the time through her whole pregnancy, even though, I mean, kids are mean, but they were merciless to her. And I was so proud of her for sticking it out and showing up for school and graduating and all that stuff. She decided to keep the baby. And that was a tough decision for her, right? Back in 87.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The world was a different place. And so I just remember how she got treated. And I remember a group of people giving her a hard time. And I looked at them and I'm like, the only difference between you and her is that she got caught.
Yeah.
So I think in high
Definitely.
school, a lot of kids are experimenting. But you understood, like
I think, I was in that place of, oh, I'm not gonna get pregnant. Was kind of the mindset of where I was at. I had been with the boyfriend for all through my freshman year, and so we'd been together a long time, and just I was like, oh, it's not gonna happen. And I had a really irregular period throughout, like from the time I got my period up all the way up through my 30s, actually. I would skip months. And so I was like, oh, maybe I can't get pregnant and stuff like that. So I wasn't really focused on it. And I guess one of the strange things is that I was so far along in my pregnancy that I didn't have a choice but to keep the baby. So there was no actual like thought process of, oh, what am I going to do? I'm pregnant now. It was because my mom had no clue that I was even sexually active. And we had been talking about, oh, maybe we should go ahead and take you to a gynecologist and maybe put you on birth control to regulate your periods and stuff. And so the very first appointment that I had with a gynecologist, I went in, we did the exam, all of that kind of stuff. And she walked out. She said, "Give me just a minute." And she walked out and she came back in. And I think they still use them, the little Doppler thing for
Yeah.
hearing the heartbeat. She walks back in and she's like, "I'm gonna, put this on your stomach and stuff like that." And she does. And she goes, "Yeah, that's your baby's heartbeat." And
Was
that's
your
how I
mom in the
found out.
room?
No.
Okay, okay.
I was by myself, here I am, 15 years old. Well, I had turned 16 by then. And I was just like, okay, what does this all mean? And she was like, "Yeah, you're about 5 months pregnant. And yeah, that's your baby's heartbeat. Sounds really strong." And then she said, "Do you want me to tell your mom or do you want to tell your mom?" I was like, "You can tell my mom." And yeah, it was kind of ugly after that, but
So did mom come in the room and she had a conversation?
she told my mom before my mom came in the room. So my mom knew. And then she came in the room and she was kind of like, "How could you do this to us?" And um
The great
there
things as parents we say to our kids in moments of duress, yes,
yeah,
because
yeah,
you did it to her, obviously.
yeah.
That's like doesn't make sense, but I understand as a parent, you sometimes react in a way that's maybe not the best.
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, it was a shock for me. It was a shock for her. And it would definitely became okay, we only have 4 months to figure out what we're gonna do. So yeah, it was
Take me through
definitely,
that process. So, I mean, you are gonna keep it or give the baby up for adoption. You have 2 options.
yeah, that was definitely, it was, you have two options. And it was hard because I I was raised in a very, on my mom's side. My dad's side was not religious at the time, but my mom's side was a very Catholic family.
Mhm.
You don't do this. You shouldn't be having intercourse anyway.
Right.
But then to be in the situation of being pregnant and not married and stuff like that, it was like, oh, you have to, like, their mindset was you have to give it up for adoption no matter what.
Yes.
Um, and so that was definitely challenging of, where do I go from here? Because they're not really giving me an option.
Yep.
And the other side of things that had happened was the boyfriend and I had actually broken up. And so I was like, okay, well, now I have to tell him that I'm pregnant and we're not really speaking to each other because we're high school people and we broke up. And so we're not going to speak. And so that was hard. And
Yeah.
then, but then I mean, there was definitely parts of me that I wish I could have kept him, but I also was a sophomore in high school and I had to really face reality, even with the challenges of religiously, you should give it up for adoption. My mom and my dad kind of saying, we're not going to raise your child.
Mhm.
So if you're going to keep it, you need to figure out life because life is not going to be under this roof of, so if you're going to keep it, you're going to have to figure out how to house yourself, how to house the baby, how to, all of that. And so, adoption kind of became the best choice because at, 16 and a sophomore in high school, I didn't have a lot of options.
Yeah. I
So
think it's important to point out too that our parents' generation, if any of them ever got pregnant, they were sent away to
right,
have the baby. Like, so what your parents did was much less harsh than what their generation went through. Because I've heard that time and time again, people that are in their 60s and 70s now are basically our parents' age.
yeah,
If they had gotten pregnant in high school, they would have been sent away to have the baby and it would have been given up and you did not have any choice. So, I mean, they
yeah,
really dialed it back.
yeah,
Also, our generation, I have a daughter that got pregnant at 16, had the baby at 17, and I said kind of the same thing. If you're willing to make an adult decision and become a parent, then I am never raising my grandkids. You need to figure this out. It's not that I wouldn't support you and love this baby and all those things, but you really need to make a decision on if you think you're the best person to parent this child,
Yeah.
or, and she kept her, and she's 18 now, and I don't think she ever regretted it, but man, it was a lot harder than she thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, at that age as a sophomore in high school, it's not like there's this happy option, like option C, where everything works out fine. So,
Yeah.
what type of adoption agency, how did that work? Did your parents help with that stuff? Did you keep
Yeah.
going to school? What did people say? What about the boyfriend's family? I have a lot of questions.
Totally fine. And it does make sense. I mean, it's one of those things that, just to veer off for a sec,
Yeah.
I really wanted to share my story. And I had actually, about 15 years ago, I was like, oh, maybe I'll write a book. And then the TV show 16 and Pregnant came out, and I was like, oh, well, who's going to listen to my story? Because it's kind of boring now that you've got all of these girls going out and, doing what they're doing on that show and being able to keep the babies and have all of this stuff. And anyway, so I
Yeah, I know. I
digress.
hate that show.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
I've said, why not like 18 and going to college with a job? And like, it kind of glamorized or glorified
The
being
situation.
yes. And look, parenting's hard at any age, but the younger you are, the less life experience. Yeah. So I find that show not a good thing at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
But I think your story's great. So
thank
keep
you.
going.
So yeah, so we, once the shock of everything kind of set in, and I did tell my boyfriend, and then well, ex-boyfriend at the time, and then we ended up having a conversation with his parents so that his parents were aware of what was going on as well. And then we actually, and I think they still do it, but here locally in the Reno area, there's a location, the Catholic Charities.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so we actually ended up going through them for the adoption process. For me, I feel absolutely blessed at the whole process that we had. I had the woman that handled our case was absolutely amazing. Her name was Mate. Um, she's passed away, but she was amazing with us and very supportive and just kind of explaining the whole process and helping us. And it took about probably 6 weeks from us finding out to my ex-boyfriend's family kind of accepting what was happening and us being able to like have the adult conversations of what's going to happen. Do you want to be involved in the adoption process? Do you want to help select the parents? All of that kind of stuff. So we were, I mean, in that, like I say, the whole process of that was a blessing. I didn't feel that way at the time when I was 16. I was like, this is horrible and I don't want to do this. And, I want my baby and all of that kind of stuff. But we were able to select parents. They gave us packets with pictures and their stories and all of that kind of stuff. And then for our process, we actually got to meet the parents while I
Oh,
was still pregnant. So that was really cool. But then I think it's called semi-closed adoption
yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
So we didn't have any contact, like we didn't know where each other lived or anything like that. But we were able through the adoption agency to send letters and all
Oh,
of that kind of stuff throughout the whole time he was growing up. So yeah, that was
that's amazing. That's great.
yeah, it was really cool. And, the whole time that Mate was still working at the adoption agency, we had an amazing experience. I think I had a son, and my son, up until he was about 12 or so, we had a lot of communication. And then life changes and the staff changed and stuff like that. So the communication lessened. And after he turned 18, I know little bits and pieces just because of being in the same area, but not necessarily what he's up to these days. So, yeah.
Wow. What was the process like? So you went, I mean, then there's labor and delivery is tough no matter what, right? You were
Mhm.
16. I feel like, you know, when your body's still growing and changing and developing, pregnancy can be more challenging. What was the labor and
Yeah.
delivery like? Did you spend any time with him? Did you pump afterwards? Like, what did they do to help you postpartum?
Um, so you had asked if I stayed at school. I did stay at
Oh,
school
yes.
until I think I stopped going to school. So the school, they had encouraged me to go to, at the time, there was a different high school that you could like get sent to if you were a troubled teen.
Got it.
But I chose to stay at the high school that I was going to. I was like, no, I don't want to I've already disrupted my life enough. I'm going to keep coming to school and I'm going to do everything I can. And then they set up, for schooling wise, they had set up like a homeschool
Mhm.
teacher to come for, and they said we can do this for, it was either 4 weeks or something, 6 weeks maybe, that I could stay at home to
Okay.
recover and stuff like that. And they let me choose when I stopped going to school. And I think it was like a Wednesday night. I was like, okay, I can't, because our school had a lot of stairs and stuff. And I was like, okay, I can't take the stairs anymore. I'm tired of waddling. And so I think like Thursday is when I stopped going to school. And then I had him on a Monday night. Um, and the labor, like the pregnancy, once I got past the shock of being pregnant, the pregnancy was fairly easy. And then the labor and delivery, like I went into labor, I guess, somewhat normally. I didn't have really any issues there. And I did end up getting an epidural while I
Mhm.
was, while I was in labor with him. And that process, it was fine. I mean, I delivered him normal and everything went well. And then I did not pump and he did not get any breast milk or anything like that after that. They took him away to the nursery and I did get to hold him once. And then his the ex-boyfriend came to visit me in the hospital and got to take him down to the nursery to see him and stuff like that. But then after that, it was like gone.
Done. Yeah.
Yeah, you're done. And the way that it worked at that time is you had to wait 72 hours after the birth before you could actually sign the adoption
Mhm.
papers. And so I had that 72-hour waiting period and then went and signed the adoption papers and then sat at home and just recovered and did my schooling. So
Wow. You ended up getting married right after high school and having your next child at 20.
yeah.
Um, how different was that? Was that pregnancy much different? Because you said this pregnancy, the first one was pretty easy. The delivery was like everything was pretty standard, nothing awful. What was the second round like?
The second time, and again, because I had the irregular periods and stuff, I didn't like, we weren't not trying to get pregnant. So I don't know if I have or had issues with getting pregnant, but um, we'd been married for like a year and a half. And
Mm,
before I actually found out I was pregnant and stuff. And again, with that pregnancy, I think I was about 3 months along before my body finally like gave me, I started having migraine headaches really bad. And
mm,
that was what triggered me to go to the doctor. And then the doctor was like, yeah, well, it seems like you're pregnant. And I was already 3 months along with that one. But throughout most of the pregnancy, it was a normal pregnancy, proceeded without any issues. With him, I ended up, he was breech at the time, like at the 8 month mark, I guess. He was in the breech position and the doctor was worried that he wasn't going to turn. And so he ended up, I don't know what the term is called, but he ended up flipping him. He gave me the drug to stop labor.
yeah.
um, and ended up flipping him. And then from that point on, for like the next 30 days, I ended up having contractions,
Yeah. Did he
but they
do
weren't
it
doing anything.
exterior, like on the outside of your stomach to
Yeah,
move
like
him?
totally squished my belly and then like turned him around and stuff. And yeah,
Exterior manual rotation.
yes.
Yes. Super
So,
fun. I mean, it's great that it worked, and because, there are times that it doesn't, and I think that that's a C-section, so that's
yeah,
always less. You don't want that option. So the fact
yeah,
that it worked and he stayed head down, even though you had the contractions, having contractions for a month is not fun. But
no, it was not.
yeah, but normal vaginal delivery after
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So that, yeah, that one was, other than the 30 days of having contractions that weren't doing anything, that was obnoxious. And
Yeah.
but yeah, he was born, normal, and I was able to breastfeed with him and had, he had a good thing going for him in that regard. And then with him, he was 3 when his biological dad and I separated and got divorced and stuff. So
Okay, and you said that it was a domestic violence issue.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, which is a really hard. I mean, I know sometimes when women leave, that's the most dangerous time. And it's hard. It's hard to recognize the signs. It's hard to um not feel like you're the one going crazy. I mean, there's all kinds
Mm-hmm.
of things that happen in a lot of domestic violence. Was that pretty amicable? You were able to leave and just go your separate way?
Ish.
Ish. Okay.
Ish. Um, so there was a lot of emotional stuff that happened, but then when it when it finally blew up into a physical altercation, it
Mm.
was a one-time thing. It was a physical
Oh,
altercation. He was arrested and he went to jail, and then the state took it from there because of the extreme nature of everything. It was like, yeah, you can't drop the charges. Um,
okay.
yeah, and so we ended up going through. He ended up eventually pleading guilty, and
Okay.
he went to prison for 3.5 years.
Holy cow, so this was not a little thing.
No.
Can you talk about it? I know sometimes we can't talk about things like this.
Um, I mean, I don't go deep into it because it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a huge part of my story anymore, because I feel like I've worked past everything.
Okay.
Um but he raped me. And I guess back in the 90s, still at that time, there was times that I would tell people what happened and they would say, well, you were married, how could he rape you? And it was like, because I said no. And it was a
Yeah.
violent situation and it shouldn't have happened the way it did. And
Yeah.
luckily the judge agreed, and so yeah, that's how we ended up where
Wow.
we did. So
You
yeah.
were a single mom after that,
Yep.
and then move us forward. I know you have two businesses, and I don't know when those kind of popped in, which is fine. We haven't gotten there yet. There's a lot happening in this story. So let's keep going forward, and you can just jump things in when they happened. But I know it
Well,
was a while before you remarried.
yeah, it was a while before I got remarried to the man I'm currently married to. And he's fabulous. So I guess to kind of play on where the businesses came in is with my son that I had when I was 20. Um, after so we actually left the Nevada
Okay.
because while his biological dad was in prison, I decided it was going to be safest for me because his mom also, that's a long
It's a
story, but
loss.
his
Right.
his mom murdered his dad, and I was like, I don't want to be in the same state with this family, and so I moved to Illinois. And sorry, I know that's a
I'm gonna
shocker.
hug you so hard the next time I see you. But okay, keep going.
So I moved to Illinois, and while I was raising my son and living in Illinois and stuff like that, he was going through a lot of, during elementary school, he was going through a lot of things where they were trying to say he had ADHD and he had a lot of allergies. And I ended up making the decision to have his tonsils and adenoids removed just because he was having so many health issues and stuff like that. And so I was going through a lot of fighting with the school of them wanting him to be on medication for the ADHD. And I was like, there's got to be a different answer. And because we were dealing with him having so many illnesses because of his adenoids and his tonsils causing issues, I really started diving into there's got to be a different way. And I started using essential oils and found a couple of books that were super helpful. Um, and just really changing his diet and paying attention to, you know, all of the different dyes that are put in foods are some of the things that are being well, now we realize, but back then in the 90s, as I was raising him, they were like, oh, well, maybe food's causing it. We don't know, and stuff like that. And so I really went through the process. And early 2000s is kind of when all of this started, you know. And so we really went through and removed dyes and all of that kind of stuff from our diet. And I saw improvement. And so I just really started studying all of the holistic, you know, natural foods, using essential oils, using herbs, all of that kind of stuff with him. And then that leads me forward to I got married.
Where did you meet your husband? What, did you come back here already, or were you still in Illinois?
No, I had moved back to Nevada,
Okay.
and the only reason that we really met was because of his sister. I lived next door to his sister, and his sister was like, yeah, you guys really need to talk. So we were both divorced and dealing with the process of being divorced and all of that kind of stuff. But she's like, yeah, you guys would make a good couple, because he was active duty in the Navy in Florida. And so we just started talking on the phone and became really close, and, you know, enjoyed talking to each other and stuff like that. And then, yeah, we got married and ended up having a child.
So this was your third generation or third decade. You
Yes.
had the last one at 38.
Yep.
How was that pregnancy, other than the fact that they tell you that you are advanced maternal age once you're 35, which I think as a doula, I just think it's ridiculous, but can't really do much about it. Other than that, how was it?
So the pregnancy with him, like, because we both had grown children, we were like, you know, yeah, it would be nice to have a baby together, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and stuff like that. And so from the time we got married up until I got pregnant, you know, we didn't use any protections or anything like that. And we had been married about a year and a half, and we're like, maybe there's an issue. Let's just go ahead and go to the doctor and see if there's a reason that we can't have kids. And if that's the case, then that's the case, and we won't worry about it.
You were
So,
pregnant.
huh?
Were you
Yeah, I
pregnant?
was
Oh
pregnant.
my gosh. You have
So
a pattern.
I do have a pattern. So we went to we went to the specialists, not
Yeah.
the in vitro, whatever they're there. So we had gone into the doctor, but this time I was like 4 weeks pregnant, like
Oh, okay.
just barely. So
Okay.
yeah, so that one, I mean, but like you say, yeah, with that, they were like, oh, you're a geriatric patient. And so, which was a pain in the butt. So from the 4.5 weeks or whatever time period up until I was about, I think I was about 10 weeks, they're like, we want you to come in and we're going to do an internal ultrasound just to make sure that you keep the pregnancy.
Right.
Until I was about 10 weeks. And then, but pregnancy wise, I was fine. Like I didn't have any, you know, I didn't have extreme morning sickness or anything like that. It was fine in that regard. And then once I got past the 10-week mark, they went ahead and referred me out to regular gynecologists um, to
Yeah.
continue the pregnancy. Um, and then with him, because I was a geriatric pregnancy, I had so many ultrasounds. It was not even funny, but it was
Mhm.
cool because I got to see him grow inside me. So that was kind of fun. But um, and the pregnancy progressed normally, except for the fact that because they were doing ultrasounds, they started telling me at about the 36-week mark. They're like, "Oh, do you know that you're having contractions?" No, I don't know this at all. Yes, I know I'm having contractions, but every time they'd examine me, they're like, "Oh, well, you're not dilating." I'm like, "Okay, great." And then probably the last week of the pregnancy, last 2 weeks of the pregnancy, they when I'd go in and they'd put me on the monitors and stuff like that, and my contractions were probably about between 5 and 8 minutes apart
Mhm.
the whole time. And they're like, "Oh, well, but it's not doing anything. You're not
Prodromal
progressing."
labor. Right. Right.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. And so, I'm like, okay, so when should I come to the hospital? If my contractions are already 5 minutes apart, when can I actually come back? Because that's what they normally tell you. Oh, when your contractions are 5 minutes apart. And yeah, so that was a pain in the butt. But he he came 2 days after his due date, and he was a completely natural birth. No drugs, no
Yay.
nothing. And yeah, so
I mean, I just think sometimes you can over over examine a situation and create an issue that's really not there,
yeah.
and I think with geriatric pregnancy, it's just so amusing to me. I'm like, statistically, what do you need to worry about, and why are we so focused on this? So I'm glad they let you go until 2 days overdue. They weren't like trying to induce you at 37 weeks and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So that's awesome. And you have two stepkids in this marriage, so you've
Yes.
done almost everything that you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you started your business with your husband right after you got married, or I
It,
want to talk about that.
yeah. So I started with the aromatherapy. I really expanded my education in that regard while we were in Florida. And then officially kind of started after my son was born.
Mhm.
We were just looking for, because my husband ended up retiring from the military, and we were trying to figure out, okay, so what is our next phase of life now that we have a young child and all of that kind of stuff. And we actually found a small farm that wasn't far from our house. And I knew I was interested in all the natural healing and stuff like that. And so we started kind of going to the farm and checking out everything they were doing. And I I became certified in the aromatherapy and started teaching. I became really close with the owner of the farm and started teaching classes at the farm and stuff like
Okay.
that. So that was kind of the business start with the aromatherapy. Um, and then amongst the participants and as well as the farm owner, they were like, well, we need to help our animals. And so I expanded into helping all of the animals at that farm and stuff. And we knew, based on all of our experiences there, that we wanted to have a small farm. Um, and we also knew that after he had retired, we did want to move back to Nevada because I have family here. And even though he's not originally from here, his mom and his sister both have settled in this area
Mm.
as well. So that's what brought us to Nevada. And then, yeah,
Yay.
so we were able to purchase 10 acres, and that's where the farm business has come in, knowing that I don't want to stay focused on essential oils because I do think that people working with plants and having those experiences of how a plant grows and working with the aromatics and understanding the plant first before you move into working with essential oils is really important. So that's how the two businesses have combined.
I love it. So when we meet and we talk and we've, chatted a few times, it's so great. I think one of the reasons that it's so great is because it's not something that I do, or am going to do, planning to do. So I love that I know someone who's so skilled and gifted. You kind of specialize, you like holistic health, and you specialize in perimenopause and
Um,
menopause. Is that right?
well, I personally haven't specialized in the perimenopause, but I have done a lot of freelance writing for other
Oh,
women.
that's what I'm thinking. Okay, okay.
Yeah. So I have done a lot of, because of the transition of moving across country and
Mhm.
everything that happened in 2020, definitely had to kind of rethink how I was going to do business for a little while. And so I started doing a lot of freelance writing, and happened to have two of my clients that, one of them is a chiropractor that specialized in, we're not working together currently, but throughout like 3 years we worked together, and she specializes in helping women with menopause and, using their
Got it.
diet to help them with all of that. And then, another woman that I work with, she's an aromatherapist, and but she specializes in working with perimenopausal and menopausal women and just helping through that journey and stuff. And now that I'm getting ready to experience it, it has become very beneficial to me.
Yes, it would. I'm postmenopausal and it is a trip. So,
Yeah.
for sure. That is so amazing. And I'm so glad that you came on and shared your story. I love it. All your information to connect is in the show notes. People should definitely check out your website. So fun. Not that other stuff isn't, but you have a lot of really great information on your website. So
Thank you.
thank you for being on.
Absolutely. I was happy to be here.